On the day of Pentecost, the effects of the outpouring of the Holy Spirit at the temple were immediate. 3,000 were brought into the fold of what was now called the church. And the church truly understood its task that day, its true mission, to serve as Christ's witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. Jerusalem felt the immediate effects of this calling, as the initial leaders of the church, the disciples of Jesus, did not return to their homes in the Galilee. Instead, they followed Jesus' commands to first take the gospel to Jerusalem. The church's ministry became well known throughout the city due to the power of the Holy Spirit which dwelt in each of its members. The accounts in the book of Acts tell us that the people living in the city and those who lived in the surrounding villages flooded to the church. People brought their sick and laid them in the streets in hopes that Peter's shadow, with the presence of the Holy Spirit, would pass over them and they would be healed. Following a healing by Peter and John of a crippled man, even those who opposed the followers of Jesus declared, "Everybody in Jerusalem knows they have done an amazing miracle, and we cannot deny it." The church in Jerusalem quickly grew. And the leadership of the church, mainly those who followed Jesus during his ministry in Galilee, decided to expand and divide to accommodate all of those flooding into the fold. They recruited Greek Jews who were not native to the land of Israel to assist with the rapidly growing church. As the ministry in Jerusalem continued to grow, it expanded beyond the boundaries of the city, though maybe not in the way that the church believed that it would happen. As the prominence of the church grew in the city of Jerusalem, so did its opponents. Eventually, the opposition led to a point of contention, resulting in the stoning of one of the church's leading members, a man named Stephen. The opposition and persecution of the church was led by a young rogue Pharisee named Saul, the man who would eventually become Paul the Apostle. Saul's persecution in response to the church did far more to grow the body of believers than to damage the church, as it hastened the followers of Jesus who were baptized in the Spirit and quickening to fulfill the command of Jesus. So they spread the gospel to Judea and Samaria. Philip, the evangelist, a Greek Jew chosen by the church leadership to assist the believers, was forced from Jerusalem, but he continued to preach the gospel wherever he was, as was done by all those who were forced from Jerusalem due to this persecution. From Jerusalem, Philip spread the gospel to the region of Samaria, a territory of people who were despised by the Jews of Israel. Because of Philip's impact on the region, the apostles sent John and Peter to investigate the reality that some of Israel's enemies were brought into the fold of salvation. They learned that the reports were true. Though some Samaritans had accepted the message of the gospel, they were still waiting for the Holy Spirit to come upon them. John and Peter laid their hands upon them and prayed for the Spirit to fall, and the believers were filled. They too were now empowered to do the mission that was placed on the church on the day of Pentecost. Philip moved once more, taking the gospel south, deep into the heart of Judea. He preached the word in the regions of Gaza, Azotus, and in Caesarea, the Roman capital of Judea. Peter, with the same call as Philip, preached the gospel in other cities and towns of Judea. He traveled to Lydia, Sharon, Joppa, and like Philip, he also preached in Caesarea. It is in Caesarea, though, that Peter brought the gospel to the household of a Gentile named Cornelius, which was followed by the baptism of the Holy Spirit for all of those who were gathered. This moment served as the catalyst for a greater reality. Acts 11:18 tells us, "So God has granted salvation even to the Gentiles." Even to the Gentiles? The construct of the Messiah is a Jewish reality. It may have been easy for some to misunderstand that God's salvation included even those outside of the Jewish faith. And it is in this moment that we see a powerful shift in thought. In the aftermath of the inclusion of the Gentiles, Jesus' statement, "You will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, in Judea and Samaria, and to the ends of the earth," was not simply a geographic reality. Instead, it broke all of societal bonds. To the ends of the earth simply could be stated to all mankind. As a result of the persecution in Jerusalem, believers took the message of the gospel to Phoenicia, to Antioch, to Cyprus, to Cyrene, and to Damascus. The church realized that even this was not enough, and commissioned men such as Paul and Barnabas to spread the gospel to some of the deepest depths of the pagan Roman world, places like Corinth and Rome, places that truly needed the redeeming salvation message of the gospel. It is this action that allowed a vast majority of the church to partake in the gift of salvation. Although the book of Acts and the New Testament writings were scripted nearly 2,000 years ago, the power of the outpouring of the Holy Spirit and the mission that Jesus gave the church continues to this day. It still calls to everyone, reminding us that we are still His witnesses, empowered through the Holy Spirit to take the gospel to the very ends of the earth.